Hi, I'm David, and thanks for taking your time to read my application and considering me as a possible candidate. So, what really got me into PT was the summer before my senior year in high school, where my grandpa was bedridden. He had late stage Alzheimer's. He was lethargic all the time. He was basically sleeping 20 hours a day, doing bed showers at that point, um, completely dependent with his life. And we had a home health PT come by 3 times a week, and I didn't know what PT was at the time. I didn't know what the field was. I didn't know what they did either. But my mom just said, "Hey, can you just go over those 3 days a week and just check up on him, help translate, make sure everything is okay for everyone?" And of course. And from there, I really got to see what a PT did. And even though she didn't do anything mind-blowingly crazy or whatever it is, it just worked, and I was inspired. My grandpa went from being completely bedridden. She probably just did bed exercise with him at the time, constant motivation, constant education with him, and he got to the point where on his next birthday, a few months later, he was completely independent. He was walking again, household distances. He was able to use the restroom by himself safely, no supervision, and it just completely turned his life around. And that's when it clicked to me. It's like, hey, this is what I want to do. She really gave me more time with him, more memories with him, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And that's just something I hope I can give back to my future patients too. And I really saw the impact that I had in his life, and I've just been running towards the finish line from there. I went for it during undergrad, went to grad school, and here I am today. So, what really, my most difficult patient also ended up being my favorite patient, and she taught me the most at the time too. So, this was roughly about 3 months ago. I had just finished 2 outpatient ortho setting rotations and walking into my first inpatient rehab, my first neuro setting. She was a lovely lady, post stroke, left side weakness, extremely impulsive, and she had struggled following commands. She's really my first low level neuro patient coming from 2 outpatient settings. It was just completely different for me. But she really taught me to lay a strong foundation with every patient when performing interventions to just make sure they're performing them correctly and progressing the patient correctly. Just for example, like of course, the things that most patients want to be able to accomplish is to walk again and get back to their prior level function. And for her, walking again meant we had to reestablish midline for her, midline orientation, sitting balance, sitting unsupported, and then from there we would progress to standing with an upright chair. But standing upright meant we had to again come back and look at midline orientation. This time standing balance, whether or not she can weight shift, take steps forward and back unsupported, or do I have to support that knee from buckling? How about my hand placement? Am I helping her weight shift onto that weak lower extremity because she's scared and she's neglecting it? And if she's doing well, then we're going to progress to, of course, parallel bars. And then again, reassessing the same things. Going back to the foundation was really what my CI taught me. And to really look at the patient and ask yourself, is this what you want? Is this what you want to accomplish? Does this look good to you? And most of the time the answer was always no. And then she asked me why not, and it really made me think about how to help my patient. And I learned that just constantly moving and changing my positioning can really help the patient, and just reassessing from top to bottom the patient's feet placement, hand placement, whether or not she's shifted back and then she's just holding on for dear life with the strong upper extremity. Just really tying in all those things and breaking it down. Even though we're progressing to higher level interventions, just constantly still breaking it down and always coming back to that foundation. And she taught me how to really be patient with myself and it's okay to be frustrated, you know. And then when we do progress, like after she's walking in the parallel bars and she looks great, we progress to the walker. And of course, that was a complete nightmare. It's a new thing for the patient. She's never used a walker before, and now she has all these impairments on top of that. So coming back to the walker, I had to again look at midline orientation, standing balance, whether or not my hand placement was good for her, how close or how far I am to the patient, how much pressure am I giving her on stabilizing while stabilizing her knee, how much pressure am I giving her just a weight shift, am I helping too much, helping too little, all these little variables, and just really came into effect, and just the most minor changes made the patient great again. You know? And then sometimes if the patient had difficulty just making, maybe taking those small steps forward, small step back, sometimes we just said, hey, I gave them a target, I want you to just try your best to walk there. We gave them visual cue like a mirror in front, and it would just click for them. And that was probably the greatest feeling. But at the same time, it took a while for me to learn to get to that point. It took a long time for me to lay that strong foundation and to just always go back to it, because as a young therapist, I always wanted to see my patient progress quickly, even though it might not be what I want. And at the time, I didn't know, hey, that's not correct, and we need to go back. And that's something that my CI always reminded me. And right now, I'm forever grateful for it, because as I see my patients in the future, I'm able to see all these impairments. Like, hey, this doesn't look right. Even though I might not know why it's incorrect, I know I'm not gonna move forward yet, and I know I'm gonna come back to the foundation, find out what's wrong, because most of the time, what's wrong is gonna pertain to me, like whether or not it's my hand placement, or I'm not educating the patient correctly, and I'm just taking my time with them and really showing them, hey, we should do it this way, and slowly they start progressing, and there's always a way for them to progress. You know? And overall, it was a thick learning curve, and just constantly having to break it down, attach to its purest form, and integrating it into the patient was my favorite learning experience so far. So thank you again for considering me as an application and taking your time to watch my video.